Now, we do see a number of items here that look very unusual in that for our own kitchens kind of a thing, but some look similar. So we've got, it looks like here you've got like a mixer of some sort.
Yes. Before they had mixers, what we call mixers today, they had egg beaters. And that's what they were used for at first, was just to beat eggs. And then later they developed an electric mixer, and now we have these great big stand mixers that you use. These are the types of wooden spoons that were used. They didn't have rubber spatulas like we use today. And they didn't use their sterling or their silver to cook with in the kitchen. This is a typical bowl of the area. This holds about a gallon.
And now this looks like it's like an earthen kind of a crock. So this is kind of heavy.
It is a crock.
So I would imagine that the ladies, if they're doing all of this stuff by hand, they're mixing by hand, they're kneading by hand, they're picking up these heavy types of things, they have pretty strong arms, I would imagine.
Yes.
So.
And that's not even heavy compared to what they had to use on the stove to cook with, which were the iron things.
Right, yeah, I've seen that they've got what looks like, once again, kind of looking at our camping analogy, like a Dutch oven,
yes.
A big heavy cast iron,
right.
An iron for actually ironing clothes,
yes. Yes.
And then it looks like a big heavy cast iron tea kettle.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a lot of stuff that they're moving around there. Right. So you'd have to be pretty strong. You
had to be strong. This is a sifter that they would put the flour in, because flour didn't come pre-sifted then, and you bought it in a 25 or a 50-pound bag. I'll show you a smaller one in a minute, but this is, you turn this little handle and you would sift the flour. And then if you were making pies, you use a rolling pin like this, and this hasn't really changed very much.
No, I think rolling pins, we could probably find examples of rolling pins from the Egyptians that don't look much different than that. That's a pretty standard thing there.
And then this is a cookbook from the period.
Here, can you hand it to me?
Sure.
We can take a look at it. So now this one looks like it is handwritten.
In pencil.
So this must be something that somebody wrote down different recipes themselves.
Right, yes. The one on the left is for snow cake, and it says 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of butter, 1 cup of sweet milk. That's not, sweet milk is milk that hasn't been, what we call homogenized milk, whole homogenized milk. 1/2 teaspoon of soda, 1 cup of cornstarch, 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, whites of 5 eggs beaten dry, I mean stiff, and flour with extract, and cover with chocolate icing.
Oh, sounds very tasty.
But it doesn't even have the baking ingredients in here, so you had to know what temperature and how long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and to that end, it looks like with the oven, it's got a temperature gauge on it, so it's not like you set it on our modern ovens. It's a case where you're like adjusting the heat to get it to where you want it to be, and I'm sure it's the same with the gas or kerosene stove.
Yeah, it would be. But remember, she started with a wood burning stove. So then you have to check. They did it by feel, actually, how hot the oven was, and they'd cook everything that way. It's amazing to me. It's so different from anything we know.
Well, but it's the same sort of thing that people have been doing for thousands of years, and in a great many parts of the world today, people are still using the same type of technology.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now I see we have something that looks like a briefcase, but it's got other things in it. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the Bradfords like to go on picnics, and this is a suitcase filled with the implements that they would use for a picnic. And they're all in there. They kept the silver, the napkins, the plates, everything is in this little suitcase. And they would carry it with them when they went out for a picnic.
Okay. So you basically have everything ready to go.
Everything ready to go except food. You had to add the food. But we actually have a picture of the Bradfords using this at a picnic.
Wonderful. Now I notice another piece of technology in this room, which is the telephone that's on the wall.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the telephone and how that came into the community or this house?
Well, the telephone, I believe, is original to the house.
Okay.
And they were on a party line. And I know one of the parties was the George Key Ranch. And each household on the party line had their own ring. It might be too short, or one long and too short, or two longs, or a combination of things. And when you picked up the receiver, you put it to your ear, and the operator would come on and say, operator. And you'd say, at the George Key Ranch, and she would, on a switchboard, make the connection. And then the Key Ranch people would listen for the right tones, and when they heard their tones, they would answer the phone.
So when the phone rang at the Key Ranch, you would hear their ring set come in on your phone,
yes.
because all the phones are all connected in a loop.
That's correct.
And technically, you could listen in on somebody else's
And they
conversation.
did.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know that the Bradfords did, but I know that in a lot of towns where that was the experience, a lot of people listened into other people's
Right.
phone calls.
Well, and we talk about privacy issues now, so they had privacy issues back then too.
They had them.
Yeah. Well, Wendy, is there anything else in particular that you'd like to point out while we're here in the kitchen?
Well, yes, there are several things in this kitchen that need to be shown. And let's kind of stay with the cooking theme first. And we have two kinds of butter churns. We have the vertical butter churn, which you plunge up and down like this, and it takes a long time to turn cream into butter. But anyway, it does do it. And then we have the horizontal one, which is a crank. And you just crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it until the cream hardens and becomes butter. We also have a sausage.
Like a press, it looks
Yeah,
like.
it is a press. And you can make sausage out of it, but you can also press apples and make apple juice out of it. So it had multiple uses. And who knows, it could be used for a number of other things. You could probably make grape juice.
Sure.
And any other kind of thing out of it, where you crush the original thing and it comes out in a liquid form.
Okay, very good. Any other particular items or things
yes,
you want to talk about?
On the stove, we have an iron, and it's just one iron. But when ladies ironed at that time, they had 2 or 3 irons, and they would heat them on the stove top, and then they'd lift it up with a hot pad, and they would iron till it cooled off. They'd put it back and grab another hot one and keep going. And they alternated the use of the irons to keep ironing with a hot iron.
So you'd always have one that's ready to go.
Yes.
And then you'd swap it out with the one that
Yes.
is cooled down.
Yes,
Okay.
and they usually had 3.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's another heavy item.
Oh, yes.
So those
yes.
ladies would have had some seriously strong muscles there.
Yeah, we have also on the stove, we have other heavy items that we've already talked a little bit about. We've got the Dutch oven, which, by the way, can be used to make a stew or to make a cake.
Right.
I mean, it's very versatile, so it's a really good thing to have. We had all of our skillets were iron skillets at that time. We have a unique little toaster that actually sits on top of the burner, and you put the toast on the top of it. You've got to watch it carefully, but it will toast your toast, so it's a good thing to have. The teapot, if any of you have a teapot at home, your teapot is light. This teapot weighs about 5 pounds without water in it, and so it's very heavy because it's iron.
Right.
I do want to say a few things about the organization of this kitchen, because it's unique, it's handy, it's convenient, so versatile. You couldn't ask for anything more. Most of the baking is done on this table. You know, whether you're rolling out pie crust, you're making bread, you're mixing anything, it's done on this table. And right behind us, we have a cupboard with all of the spices, the salt, and everything else that you would need. And so it's just, you know, one step away. In the drawer, right to my right here, is the bin that holds flour. And right behind me is a bin that holds sugar. And so everything is convenient and easy to use, and you don't have to take many steps to get to it and bring it to the table. The other thing that we have that's rather unique and deals with cooking is the tea cart, which was brought from Massachusetts with Mrs. Bradford, so it's original to the house. And probably the last thing that we need to talk about are the rug beaters. We have 2 rug beaters. They're different kinds. One is metal and one is
it's like a wicker
type thing. And they would take the rugs out and hang them on the clothesline, which most of you don't even know what a clothesline is, but they would hang them on the clothesline and beat the rug to clean it. Now that was before vacuum cleaners came in. So it's a pre-electric way of cleaning your rug.
Okay, talk about.
The last thing that I want to mention is, remember I told you that the women were in the kitchen all day long. You think they ever needed to sit down?
I would imagine they need to sit down frequently.
Yes. So there's a rocking chair that's always in the kitchen. In everybody's kitchen, there's a chair, or maybe 2, in the kitchen where they can sit down and rest. It's also a place, if they had babies, they would take their babies and rock them maybe to sleep. And
right.
So it was a really important piece of furniture in the kitchen, is to have that chair or rocking chair.
Right, and fairly common type of piece of furniture during that time period.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Well, Dr. Wendy, it was so nice to meet with you and to learn more about the Bradford house and all the interesting things that they were doing here in the kitchen. So until our next episode, everybody be well.